Grandmaster Jesse Cohen here from Some School of Chess with another Quick Bites video for you today. Today I want to discuss the difference between an open and a closed position, how that affects strategy, and what you can do to utilize that for your benefit. Okay, so basically an open position means a position with lots of open lines or pathways for attack. Whereas a closed position is one that has lots of locked lines. And what's going to determine how many open or locked lines there are? It's all about the pawns, okay? I'm going to show you two examples today from two famous games, one from American Grandmaster Paul Morphy and one from Grandmaster Nimzovich, showing the difference in open versus closed positions, and again, what that tells us about strategy and how we should be playing them, okay? So the first thing I want to show you guys is this Paul Morphy game. In this game right here, Paul Morphy is going to play the Evans Gambit, okay? Now something I just want to have you keep in mind, that the more pawns that are traded off, especially in the middle, are going to create a more and more open position, okay? So for example, if this pawn goes here and this goes here and takes and here and takes and here and here and takes, and this just keeps going on, okay? At this point, black is missing 3 pawns and white is missing 2 pawns, and they're all the center pawns. As a result, there are so many open pathways going everywhere, okay? See what I mean? Whereas a closed position is going to look something more like this. Instead of having pawns come off the board, all the pawns are on the board, and notice how they're locked together. And because they're locked together, they are stuck, they can't trade off, and basically all this area right there is just like closed off. You can't use that area to go from your side to your opponent's and actually go attack, okay? Anyways, enough about that. Let's get on to the good stuff. Whoopsie. Just kidding. Here we go. All right, so in this game, Evans Gambit. First, white sacrifices 1 pawn on purpose, this pawn b4 move. Luring the bishop here, pawn c3, bishop c5, castles, knight f6, d4, putting more tension between pawns. Pawn takes pawn takes back here, okay? Now what's happened is that it's not a totally open position so far, okay? White still has 2 center pawns and black still has 1, but several pawns have come off the board already, and as a result, open lines are starting to occur. Now, as this happens, I really want you to pay attention to this, okay? Here is the big notch. As more pawns come off the board, you need to remember a few key things. Number 1, development is number 1, okay? As pawns come off the board, all these open lines start happening where very fast attacks can be created. And as a result, whoever typically has more pieces out can just launch a fast attack and destroy their opponent completely. And that's exactly what we're going to see in this game. Check this out. All this did was open more lines. Notice how, with no pawns, now this is a totally open line. This is totally open. There's lots of nice open lines here. Taking again. Check. Here. Okay? Now in this position, again, there's so many open lines already. Because of all the pawns that have come off, there are just so many open lines all over this chessboard, okay? Now again, we need to remember this. In open positions, we need to be having our pieces out as fast as possible. We need to be attacking as fast as possible, and we need to remember that tactics and tricks are everywhere, okay? I've said in previous videos, and I'll say it again, the first thing that we all do in chess is have a solid tactical foundation. Garry Kasparov says without that, all the strategy in the world won't help you, okay? And so you have to be aware that as pawns come off the board, the need for having quicker development, faster attacks is everything, okay? So in this position, white is down. What is he down? He's not down anything, actually? No, he's down stuff. What is he down? It's not telling me? That's weird. Okay, I actually have to count it. Fine. White is down. Is white actually down nothing? That's weird. I guess white's technically down nothing at the moment. Okay, never mind. Anyways, in this position, with all these open lines, white only has this activated piece and this activated piece. And that's about it. I want you to watch how fast white needs to activate these pieces and how fast white needs to keep the attacks coming and try to keep all these tactics working. New piece comes out, putting pressure on the pinned knight, immediately threatening rook takes e7. Initiative, development. Bishop comes out, blocking it. Development, defense. Knight c3, development, and initiative. It's a hard threat to see here, but let's just say black just plays some move. This knight gives support to the square on d5, pawn d5, attacking the bishop because we want it to move so our rook gets opened back up for this rook takes e7 check. Bishop to a5, attacking the knight and pinning it to the rook, intending if d5 to play something like bishop takes c3. Just in case you might be wondering, first of all, you should notice that is a loose bishop, and you should be trying to look for queen a4 check to see if you can pick it off. But unfortunately, after pawn c6, this discovery defense saves everything. Instead, though, white knows the position is open, attacks fast matter. Knight e4. Ignoring everything. Go ahead and take my rook. It's not that much of an ignore because, right, what's going to happen here? Knight f6 checkmate, right? So let's not do that. Instead, rook takes g7, knight f6 check, here, here, here. I'm not going to explain this game. I'm not going to go too much into depth, okay? All I want you to see is how quickly white is trying to dispose of his opponent or her opponent. And the reason, again, is because of all these open lines, okay? And notice that tactics are everywhere, okay? Instead of just taking this rook, this knight comes in, threatening knight takes e6, forking all these pieces. If queen takes f6, it looks like a free knight. Knight takes h7 check, forking the queen and the king because, the rook can't take it because the bishop would take the king. That's an absolute pin, okay? Like I said, having those more active pieces, development, having that attack, having those tactics is everything here. And basically, black falls apart in just a matter of moments and everything explodes and his opponent resigns, okay? Again, I don't want to get too much into depth. I just want to show you what this looks like and what it means. Again, when it comes to open positions, the more pawns that are traded off, especially in the center, the more open the position will become. If you want to become a stronger player, you should be aware of when pawns are coming off the board and think to yourself, as that happens, the importance that I bring out my pieces immediately and attack my opponent like crazy and try to look for tactics everywhere, that mentality should be starting to set in, and you should be starting to adapt your style to that environment. Just like this new environment, this one over here. This one comes from Nimzovich, who was known for being a closed position player. Now check this out. I'm not going to get too much into the opening here. I just want you all to look at this position. Surprisingly, this game actually doesn't last too terribly long. But look at this position. Talk about a closed position, okay? Let's see if we can count all the pawns that are locked. These pawns are locked. That pawn is not locked against each other, but that pawn is stuck. That pawn is stuck. These pawns are locked. Whenever you see the locked pawns, you know it's even more closed. These pawns are kind of stuck against each other. Like this whole area of the board is just completely locked up, including the center. Now, what does this mean? Okay, couple things. Number one, in a closed position, okay, things happen much more slowly. Because there aren't all these open lines to attack, there are all these open pathways, we can't just race across the board and annihilate our opponent right now, okay? Usually it's going to take a slow buildup. And because things are happening so slow, you have the time to make very long plans. You can actually probably map out, I want to get my knight here, my bishop here. You can map all that stuff out because the position is so locked and unchanging and static that you're going to actually be able to get your pieces there. The position isn't going to totally change by the time you get there, okay? So attacks come slow, if at all. You have tons of time to make long-winded plans. Development doesn't matter that much, okay? You can have a bunch of pieces out, and if the position's totally locked up, it doesn't really matter because you can't use them to go attack, okay? And then the other thing to remember in these positions as well is if that center gets locked up, remember, the center is the most important part of the board. When it's locked up and totally closed, you got to play on the sides of the chessboard. Again, I'm not going to go into too much detail here, and I will say normally this would have been a much longer game. But Black did not play the best in this position and actually got annihilated. But it did get annihilated with a queenside wing attack, again, because the center is all locked up. Again, when the center is locked, you play on the wings. Otherwise, the best way to counter an attack on the wing is a counterattack in the center, but we'll talk about that in another video. And so what ends up happening is he starts launching all these queen attacks. And then this position right here, this is like borderline comical. This touches back on a different video that I talked about the other day, that you don't have to win your opponent's pieces to kill them. Just look at the queen. I think enough said, okay? But boy, oh boy, this position is so locked. It is so incredibly locked. If it wasn't for the fact that some big mistakes are about to happen, this game could have gone on for a while. That move. Undermining the pawn because of that. And then just so happens tactic, and his opponent resigns. By the way, this isn't a tactical lesson, but take 2 seconds and see if you can figure out why that is a resignable position for Black. It's not checkmate, right? They can take it with this knight. So is the whole point of sacking the queen then? Knight e6 checkmate. Everything's covered. Notice that this would not have been checkmate at the moment because the bishop, of course, takes us. Okay, so again, if you just want to, here's the too long didn't read version of this video, okay? You got two types of positions. You've got closed positions where everything is super locked against each other and things are going to happen very slowly. You have time to make lots of plans, long-winded plans. Tactics are not going to happen hardly at all. And yeah, you can kind of just do the slow build-up, okay? Whereas in an open position where pawns are getting traded off left and right, especially in the middle, the more that happens, you need to be aware of that and make sure that you remember that development, bringing out all those pieces, who has the attack, okay? That's basically all there is, and lots of tactics, okay? So again, the more open the position is, I'm bringing out those pieces. I am attacking like crazy, and I'm looking for the checks, the captures, the threats, all the tactical clues, so that I can smash that tactic and win that game as soon as it happens. And if it's closed, I'm not as worried about tactics. I'm just kind of slowly building up my position, and I'm probably playing on the wing if the center's locked. Anyways, enough about that. Trying to keep these short. Not doing a great job this time, but anyway, love you guys. I will check you later.